Okay, right. Thank you.
Been given superpowers, ask us for an autograph. We sing, we dance, we'll make you laugh. Don't you want to be like that? We've been given superpowers, ask us for an autograph. We sing, we dance, we'll make you laugh. Don't you want to be like that?
Okay, we've been given superpowers. That's where we're going with today. So the Slido is an opportunity for you to ask questions using that QR code there. We've also added a point where you can select to either ask a question or to give a little testimony about how you have seen God fulfill something He's promised. So just navigate that, and it's a good way of us hearing how this word is having an impact on you guys as we're going through it. Okay, so far in this series, looking at faith, I've talked to you about my little equation of faith equals what God says about Himself, so what we can see in Scripture, plus the track record that we have, how He's proved Himself and acted, along with that kind of personal conviction of what He's said, and choosing to act on that. So we've got a whole bunch of considering to do, and then some action to take. And in the first two episodes, I made the point that faith is making decisions based on who God is, what He has done or said, and is saying. And I made the point that you've got a role to play in your own faith. It doesn't just land on your lap. And I've challenged you to collect and consider the evidence of who God is, how He's shown Himself. And then last week I said, look forward to that previous week and think, when have you got an opportunity to take God at His word? So that's the kind of stuff you can be talking about with each other. Okay, so I believe that faith gives us three superpowers, and that I'm going to work through today. So the first superpower is the ability to perceive God's will and act accordingly. This is like to have ears to hear, but it doesn't just remain as hearing and information. It is transformed into action for it to be faith. So let me take you through some illustrations that I've used in the past. Now, we have 5 senses: sight, smell, taste, hearing, and touch. Now, if there was a fire, you would be able to see the flames, smell the smoke, taste the fumes, hear the crackle of the wood, and feel the heat. But if that fire was a long distance away, like the other end of a field, you might not feel the heat. You might not be able to hear the crackle. You might not be able to taste the fumes or smell the smoke. All you've got is your sight. So you've got 4 senses that are saying no fire, 1 sense that is saying fire. We don't have any problem with accepting what that 1 sense tells us overrules what the 4 other senses are numb to. I believe that our faith sense is an ability, an additional ability. So I might see a verse like this: God will never leave me and forsake me. Well, it doesn't look like He's never leave me or forsake me. It doesn't smell like He's never left me or forsaken me. It doesn't taste like it. It doesn't sound like it. And it doesn't feel like it. But our superpower that we have is that we can perceive something that all of the other senses are numb to. So let's consider this in a little illustration. I've filmed this a while back. And you see that there's a choice to act on that sense. Imagine you're a street child. You live on the street. You sleep in shop doorways and eat only what you steal from the marketplace. You have no family. Your clothes are old, dirty, and torn.
One day someone comes to you and says, "You're the son of the king." You are skeptical and dismissive. You say, "Look at me. I live on the street. I'm barely surviving hand to mouth." This person then pulls an official-looking document out. They announce, "Here is your birth certificate. See, it proves you have royal blood." You now have a choice. You can conclude, "I don't feel like a prince. I don't taste like a prince. I don't sound like a prince. I don't smell like a prince. And I don't look like a prince." You can trust your feelings and continue to live like a street child, or you can trust your sixth sense, your ability to sense a deeper reality, to trust in the official evidence provided by a higher authority than your feelings. It's a risk either way, but you decide to trust your sixth sense. But this decision would be worthless if you don't make a change. What is the point of being a prince if you continue to live on the street? Therefore, you go through a life-changing makeover. You clean up. You trade your rags for robes. You move into the palace. You spend from the royal treasury. You command people. And you feast and relate to the king, your father. There is a process of learning to step into your true identity. At what point did you become a prince? Was it when you saw the evidence? No. You'd been a prince since birth, but the revelation happened much later. The key question is, how will you respond to your revelation?
So let's have a little think about that. Can you think of a time when you became aware of new evidence by your faith sense? Just like we've talked about the fire in the field, that we weren't aware that there's only one sense that was perceiving it. Or like the Bible verse that we talked about, when you just become aware of something that you weren't aware of before, or in that drama it was the birth certificate. What was the thing that happened that caused you to see completely different? And then I want you to ask, did you act on that evidence? Like the street kid had to change quite a bit about the way that he lived to live according to the new evidence. So talk to the person next to you. Can you think of a time you became aware of new evidence by your faith sense, and did you act on this evidence? Okay. It's a tough question. It does take some thinking about, so I do encourage you to keep thinking when you've left today, and talk it through with people that are close to you. See if you can kind of clarify. So it doesn't have to be particularly dramatic. I know one of the words that I talked about last time when we was talking about personal conviction was, you're the head and not the tail, was one of the words that was brought to me. Now, I could have found that in the Bible, but when the person brought it to me, there was something about me, about inside that just felt, yeah, that's for me. That's now. That is, I'm taking that. I'm receiving that. But I couldn't just then think, but suddenly my environment should change around that word. It didn't. I changed within my environment. So I started thinking differently. I had a different attitude, and sometimes I had to choose to take a different attitude. So when I felt like I was being victimized, I'd have to say, but I'm not going to live as a victim, because I'm the head and not the tail. I will make the decisions of my attitude and my choices. I won't allow them to be dictated to me by things that are going on around me. There was a battle to come back into embracing that. And I could easily give you plenty of evidence around why I should be like the tail. I've got plenty of slights and offenses to warrant me feeling bad for myself. But that word, it kept on testing me and saying, look, there's a different way to be. That's not God's word for you. And so I could comfort myself in that kind of blanket of victimhood. But what I was called to do is drop that and step into the truth of He was empowering me to be someone different, even if I'm facing these things. So keep talking about that with people. I think that would be helpful. All right, so that was the first superpower, the ability to perceive what God is saying and to act on it. The second power that faith gives us is that faith pulls a promise into the present. So let's do a little bit of Greek here. So I know I showed you this verse right at the beginning and said, all right, that's it, all done. You've now got the Bible definition and we don't need to talk about it anymore. But so faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. So sometimes it's helpful to go back to the original Greek to see what was being said. So there's this word here that is translated in this version as assurance is apostasis. And this word is elongos. I should really have someone else just pop up and say these words. You don't need to be able to pronounce them. I've got this far without being able to do it. Now, these are the original Greek words, but different translations use different English words to describe them. And so a lot of the time I use the NIV or the ESV or the NAS. And these use the translation as faith is the assurance or the confidence of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. But when you look at the King James and the CEV version, they actually use some different words that actually really quite change the sense of it. So faith is the substance or the reality of the things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. So I'm better when I translate most things into ice cream. And so if I was to think of that first thing, to me it's like being offered a menu. These are the things that are available. Look and pick. Do you want vanilla, French vanilla, M&M? Ooh, wow. Cookies and cream. These are the things that are offered. And that, it feels much more of a mental exercise, the idea of conviction, the idea of assurance, the idea of confidence. But I would see it more like a taste testing that we have with this other translation. It's much more experiential. To have the substance, it's almost like you have it in your hand, the reality, and it's evidence. It's something that's not just mental, it's experiential. And there's a number of commentators that I've read that say they actually find that the second translation is more in line. This idea of it is something not just that is out there, but it can be tasted today. You can actually have a taste test of something that you're about to have in the fullness. So another thing, if you don't like ice cream, it would be the Paramount free trial before you buy into the subscription. You get a sense of the thing, an experience of the thing. It's much more than just a description, it's an experience. So this kind of fed into an experience that I had helping my son William get ready for school, because sometimes there is a big challenge in springtime or autumn time. Is it shorts or trousers for school? And my eldest son, I could leave out a bin bag and he would put it on and not think about it. William spends a bit more time thinking about what he wants to wear. One's not right and one's not wrong. It's just different situations. So it means that I've got to be involved in the process of shorts or trousers because it's very stressful. So I go through some considering options. So I would say, well, why don't you open the front door, see what it feels like outside? So you could do that. He said, but I don't know, it's still a little bit cold. Okay, well, tell me about your experience, William. You know that at the beginning of the day, it's cooler when the sun's lower. By the time the sun's at midday, it's warmer. So you've known that, you've seen that. I've also got the power of Met Office in my phone. And so we will look at what the forecast is. And we will be able to see, the temperature's going to increase. So at lunchtime, let's see what the temperature's going to be. All right, it's going to be 20 degrees by lunchtime. So do you think that's shorts or do you think that's trousers? Oh, well, I think it's shorts, but I might be uncomfortable to begin with. Yeah, that might be. What if I get there and everyone else is wearing trousers? I'm only one in shorts. I'll stick out like a sore thumb. I'll feel awkward. And I said, that might be true. You might feel awkward. But tell me, at 12 o'clock, who do you think will feel like the awkward ones? Those in trousers or those in shorts? Oh, no. I think by then, I feel that I would have dressed for the future, for where things are going. So there's a willingness to suffer the discomfort in the short term for the expectation where things are heading. I had a conversation with one of the guys that I do football coaching with, and we were talking about the fact that parents often don't say if their kids are coming to matches or not, and it's frustrating. And he was saying, oh, this parent never does it. And I said, well, English is not his primary language. I think there might be a hesitation to write stuff in that forum. And he said to me, he goes, oh, you're so blooming merciful. He didn't mean it as a compliment, but I took it as a compliment. Because what he was effectively saying is, you're not made for this world. You're going to be constantly abused by this world. And I thought, that's probably what William feels like when he arrives at school with his shorts on and everyone else got trousers on. You're not made for this world. The truth is, I'm not made for this world. I'm made for the next. But the next isn't just after I die, it's being brought now. And there is a promise that I believe I can not only look towards and hope for, but I can experience today. I can actually walk in that and experience pockets of heaven today. I can taste it today. I'm living for a time yet to come, and I'm choosing to live that way now, and I also get to experience some of the benefits of that today. We see in the Bible a whole bunch of people that lived anticipating the future trajectory. In going back to Hebrews 11, we see Noah. By faith, Noah, when warned about the things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. He saw where things were going, and he acted now to do that. And they teased him and they taunted him for doing that. Why are you building a boat in the middle of the desert? You look like an idiot. Right? This theologian, Thomas Manton, said, "The people of the world did not tremble with fear until the water reached the rooftops. But Noah trembled in fear when God did but speak." Are you saying there's no consequences to violating what God says? You can tremble now, or you could tremble later. Noah was living for a time to come, but he'd seen it. By faith, he perceived what was coming, and he pulled that promise into the present and started to act on it right then. There will be people that would tease us for the way that we live, but I tremble because of what God is saying, not because of the consequence of what will happen later. We've talked about Abraham a few times. For he, Abraham, was looking forward to a city with foundations whose architect and builder is God. He was looking for a world that was not this world. He set out in pursuit of something that didn't already exist. That's what our hearts are set on, pilgrims. We're pursuing something that cannot be satisfied by anything here, and we refrain from giving ourselves to anything here because we know what he's got for us is far superior, and we live as people that can't be distracted by what's offered here. We see Moses, Hebrews 11:25. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as a greater value than the treasures of Egypt because he was looking ahead to his reward. Moses experienced a taster of what God had in store, and he set his heart on that through faith. How about for you? How might your vision of the future empower you to live differently now? What might you be willing to stick out like a sore thumb for because you can anticipate the trajectory of where things are heading? Talk to the person next to you. Okay. So, if you like what the person's saying, you want more time with them, get a coffee with them afterwards. Okay, so Faith superpower 1 enables us to perceive what God's saying and embrace it. The second superpower is about being able to pull the promise into the present. The third superpower is that faith is invisible, yet it can be seen. So, if it can be seen, it provides us an opportunity to assess if we're operating in faith or not. But I will give some warnings around that shortly. Let's look at some of these times where Jesus was taken aback by people's faith. So this was the friends lowering the paralyzed man through the roof. It said, when Jesus saw their faith, he said to the paralyzed man, son, your sins are forgiven. What had he seen? What had he seen when he looked up and he saw what they'd just done? Well, he'd seen a confidence, the confidence that his friend, this man's friends had in Jesus' ability and nature to bring healing to their friend. They believed it so much that they tore a hole in someone else's roof. They went all in on this belief. They got in the wheelbarrow. They believed it that much, and that was obvious for Jesus to see. How about this occasion? This is when Jesus is walking through an area outside of Israel. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. He answered, I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. He replied, it is not right to take of the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Yes, it is, Lord, she said. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from the master's table. Then Jesus said to her, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted, and her daughter was healed at that moment. For our modern day Western mindset, this is a very tough scripture to engage with. This feels really rude. I think it was rude. I think Jesus was provoking and drawing and testing something in this woman that we today gain the benefit of. What was it that Jesus was so amazed at? I think it was her persistence in the face of resistance. She didn't take no for an answer. And she was humble. In fact, humiliated. She could understand that Jesus had the power and the authority, and he would be willing to receive a request from a Gentile. What I love about this story is Jesus had been sent initially to the children of Israel, but with the intention right from the beginning was that what Jesus started with the family of Abraham was going to be made available to the whole world. She saw where things were heading, and she said, I want a taste of that now. Her faith poured a future promise into the present, and Jesus saw it for what it was. This is when the centurion comes to Jesus. When Jesus entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him asking for help. Lord, he said, my servant lies at home paralyzed, suffering terribly. Jesus said to him, shall I come and heal him? The centurion replied, Lord, I do not deserve you to come under my roof, but just say the word and my servant will be healed, for I myself am a man under authority with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and this one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was amazed and said to those following him, truly I tell you, I have not found anyone in Israel with such great faith. What had he heard? Well, this guy had an understanding of power and authority and he knew that Jesus had it. And he believed that Jesus would receive a request from a Roman soldier. A Roman soldier who could demand Jesus to do what he wanted. A Roman soldier that would be hated by the oppressed Israelites. But there was something that he had seen, the centurion had seen, and he chose to believe, and he put his weight in the wheelbarrow, and Jesus saw that for what it was. So here we've seen 3 examples of when people have acted with faith. 2 of those were people completely outside the remit that Jesus had initially been sent to. But here we're going to look at those that were slap bang in the middle. In fact, they were the 12 that he had personally selected. We're going to look at where they didn't have faith and how Jesus saw that. So this is the story of the storm at sea. And the disciples, including some well-experienced fishermen, they are absolutely freaking out. So this can't have just been a normal storm. They would have seen normal storms. This is probably a hurricane that they've just found themselves in. And they're crying out and they're terrified. Jesus, wake up, wake up. Don't you care? We're going to drown. Are the type of things that they're saying. Jesus' response, where is your faith? He asked the disciples. In fear and amazement, they asked one another, who is this? He commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him. What had Jesus seen? He'd seen his disciples freaking out. He'd seen them questioning Jesus' commitment to them and his ability to fulfill the word that he'd given them at the start of this passage, which was, let's go to the other side of the lake. They hadn't got to the other side of the lake. So was God not good for his word if they thought they were going to drown there? Where is your faith? By implication, you have it. You've got it in your bag. Get it out. Use it. You have some, but you're not accessing it. They were more focused on the storm and not who Jesus was. If they had asked these questions, who is this? Even the winds and the waters obey him. Whilst they were in the middle of the storm, perhaps that would jot them back, push them, connect them back to a faith position of, we know who he is. He has revealed himself to us. This is the challenge. When the storm hits, can I remember? Or am I completely, my view completely eclipsed by what is around me, what my natural senses are picking up? When you panic, it doesn't mean that you don't have faith, but it might mean you're just refusing to use the faith that you already have. So let's work that through. Where is your faith? Here's the elements of the equation. So calming the storm. God's nature. He's the creator, that's the word. Creator, he's in control and he loves us. This is the nature of God that they would have already had in the bag. What had they seen? Well, when you look at the Gospel of Mark, which a lot of commentators saying is in chronological order, I looked back, what are the events that they would have already seen? So they would have seen demons cast out and healings. So Peter's mother-in-law, paralyzed man, guy with a withered hand healed. So they've seen God's power, Jesus' power in action. What is their personal conviction? What has God just said? Let's go to the other side of the lake. So what would a faithful action be? Calm in the storm, because they bring these things to mind. Now here's the caveat, here's the concern. We can't always easily see from the outside if faith is in play. So let's look at some scenarios. Okay, COVID hits, and we're required to change our behavior. How do we express our values? Well, maybe I socially distance, or maybe I don't socially distance. How do I decide from looking on the outside, I could say, well, someone who has socially distanced, you've just done this on the basis of you just want to avoid getting in trouble with the law, but God's desire is a higher will. You're just doing what all your friends are doing just to fit in. You're just acting out of fear. Those could all be accusations for socially distancing. But then those that don't social distance could be, you just don't want to be told by anyone. There's a spirit of rebellion in you. So which action is faith and which is not faith? It's not easy to see from the outside. How about the mother that's desperate for her daughter? She's longing to see God break in and make a difference. But crisis hits. Is it mum to the rescue? Or is it mum holds back? Which is the faith-based response in this? It's not necessarily easy to see from the outside. I can say God knows and loves my daughter, has a purpose and can bring good out of these consequences. But therefore I should hold back. But sometimes God empowers me to step in. Which ones to do? How about believing for money? Well, do I cut my spending or do I not cut my spending? I might say, well, I'm at peace that God's going to provide. Meanwhile, I'm working really hard, taking every overtime shift I can possibly get, trying to cut down on this, cut down on that. Or am I actually trusting and at peace? Or am I choosing not to cut down because I'm just burying my head in the sand? I'm saying that in peace, but I'm terrified of even looking at my finances, even opening the envelope with a bank statement in. Well, again, different behaviors don't necessarily show where faith is. How about we're expecting a healing for our son? Do we receive medical intervention or not? Abs, you've got a real life on this one.
Yeah, so many of you know about Miles. Some of you might not. So my son, he was born at 26 weeks, and he was about the size of my hand here. So he kind of was fighting for his life, really. Most of the time he was in hospital, and regularly the doctor, well, every day the doctor would come up to you and tell you kind of the situation, what's going on with him. So we were quite used to being told quite bad, very negative news. I mean, that was the reality. But I remember one day going into the hospital, it was probably about halfway through him being in there. He was in there for about a bit over 3 months, and the doctor was like, "Oh, I need to talk to you." I was like, "Oh, great." And he just started saying all this stuff. I think he was saying, "Oh, his brain is swelling up" or something. And he said to me, "Oh, I think you just need to sit down." And I just remember something like it was God rising up in me at that time. And I was like, "No, you don't get to tell me to sit down. And you don't get to tell me that this is going to happen to him." And it wasn't me, because I'm not really like that. I'm a yes person. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I'm calling Anna Page or calling you. But yeah, it was God rising up inside of me. And yeah, it was just a moment of no, and I think you felt at the time as well, like, this is enough. We've had enough here. And that was a moment, really, then I think the church came together and prayed for him, and we saw really a kind of dramatic change in his health at that time. So that was one of the things. So
when it comes, Abs, to that word, talk about the word that you got.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot an important part. So obviously when he was born, lots of people had words for us, and I think this particular word came from Daniel, my husband. I thinking about the story in the Bible of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they get thrown into the fire for not worshipping the fake idol, and they came out of the fire and they didn't even have like any smoke on them. And he said, like, I feel like this is a word over Miles' life, that, you know, he is in the fire at the moment, and he was kind of fighting for his life. He was in the fire, but that God says that he's going to emerge with no smell of smoke on him. And at that time, it was pretty like, whoa, okay, this is really amazing. So yeah, that was something that we could hold on to, and I guess when the doctors would come and tell you things like that, that was contrary to what the word we felt like over him. And even really to this day, we're kind of going back to that word. God, you said that over him. So what does that mean when a doctor this week tells me that, you know, his grommet is blocked and his hearing has gone down? You know, do I just accept that, or do I say, well, no, God said that over him, so I'm going to see God unblock this grommet? And, you know, yeah, so I think it's constantly being reminded of that by people around us. You're quite good at, you know, asking questions, and yeah, it's constantly.
And that. Oh, have I turned myself off? No? You turn me.
Yeah.
And so Abs can take that word and say, oh, it must mean that we mustn't take any medical intervention because we're just looking that God's going to do it all. Well, that's not necessarily what God said. And so there's a working this through of, okay, I'll receive this medical intervention. And sometimes there's a hesitation, no, I'm not quite thinking that one, or I've got to push this one through because I need more intervention. But working through as we go. Thank you. Okay. So, faith is every part of our, has a role in every part of our life. And so we've got to keep coming back to, what is the nature of God? What is his track record? How has he proven himself? And what is he saying to us now? These are factors that have to be in play when we're making decisions on what we're doing. And sometimes from the outside, you don't know what God's said to someone else. And so we'll talk about that more in a later episode. How do you stand with someone else during their place of faith? I found these clips from Dan Mohler's teaching really helpful. The whole video is incredible. I've watched it like 7 times. I'm still learning something each time. But he paints 2 scenarios that we could face about being laid off, being made redundant. See if you can detect which one's got faith, which one's not got faith, and how that faith is exhibited.
Talk about, you get the layoff and you've been praying and now you're broken because you got laid off. You're crying in the car because you don't know what you're going to do, because the reality is you have bills, you're borderline over budgeted, and now you don't even know if you can get a job to, and now you call your wife, now she's bawling, but we're Christian. It just fascinates me how we become what we're going through all the time. And we're living from moment to moment. That's why most of us get tricked into living very ineffective. You get the layoff. It fascinates me. You get the layoff notice. Why isn't this just a normal, simple response? Wow. Man, I sure didn't see this coming. My goodness, God, I'm so glad I know you and I'm in covenant with you. This caught me by surprise. I didn't even know the company was in this position, let alone me on this list. Man, the truth is, you know my bills, my family, my life. God, I just trust you, and I thank you. As quick as the door open, one's going to close, one's going to open. I'm just going to knock on a few. Somebody will see the value in my life. But man, I just thank you, because if I didn't know you, I'd probably be shipwrecked right now, and finances would be driving me. But God, I just worship you and thank you that you love me and you know my family, and surely you're the hand that cares for us. God, thank you. And you call your wife and she says, what? And you say, no, it's okay, honey, listen. It doesn't change the truth about who we are in him. As quick as the door closed, it'll open. We just keep shining. We're just going to live Jesus, honey. Yeah. Okay, honey, listen. It's not about our bills being paid. It's about trusting and believing him. He's amazing. We're just going to do what we do. I'm going to knock on a few doors. He'll open one. Honey, this isn't the end of the world. This is the opportunity to shine. Can I tell you, I pastored for a long time, and I don't see that response. That response is not out there in my circle. And I preach this stuff. It's out there in some folks.
I want it to be out there here. I want us to be a people that can get hit by a storm like being made redundant or getting back those health results or discovering something we didn't know about someone that we care about. And we're able to recalibrate where we are and remember who he is. I was talking to my wife the other day, and she's a school teacher, and so the start of term they got to do all of the safeguarding things again, and it's pretty full on. I guess if your teachers, like these are the stats, this is what's going on in this neighborhood, these are the violent crimes and the stuff that's going on. And you get the news on a daily basis. This stuff hit me this day. Just this massive tidal wave of just, oh my goodness, oh, what am I doing? I just felt the negativity just clouding down over me. And I could then react and work in that basis. But because this stuff's been on my mind, because I think God is offering us a different way, God, the clouds have just come over the sun, but I know it is still there. And so I'm going to take some time now to remember who he is, how he's proved himself to me and my family time and time and time again. And I'm going to rest on your word, what you've said about us. And now I'm going to choose an attitude and a mindset that puts the weight on those things being true. And it was just like it was the clouds just parted again. It's like, okay, I see the light again. Sometimes it takes a bit of wrestling. Even for Jesus, when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's wrestling to realign himself with God before he goes to the cross. And it's okay that sometimes there's a wrestling, but there's a looking for what is the truth. So here's a quick, actually, I didn't ask you that one. Okay. I want you to take this question away. I'm not going to give you this one now because we're short on time, but if faith can be seen, where have you seen your faith? Where have you taken an action, so an attitude, a mindset, or an actual decision where you've seen, yeah, that was faith in action, just like Abigail described that almost, I'm going to stand up when you've told me to sit down. There was something that, this isn't me, this isn't my normal response. She's not going to thump the doctor in the face and say, you shouldn't be saying these things, because facts, presentation of facts do not undermine faith. Give me all the facts. Yeah, sure, it's your profession, it's what you're told to do. That's great, I hear that. But I'm looking to someone that has greater reality than that. I'm looking for something that, when all of my other senses deny, I can still perceive that this is real. Have you ever called a decision faith when it wasn't? So again, this one's a take away with you. So for instance, I've claimed that I've got faith for an exam, but I don't revise because I'm actually lazy. I call it faith. It sounds more palatable, but I'm just being lazy. I just want to play on the computer for longer. I claim that by faith I'm at peace, but really I'm just in denial. I've buried my head in the sand. I'm not actually engaging because the facts scare me, so I don't look at them. I claim I'm in faith for income, for God to meet my needs, but outside of that setting, I'm in panic mode, and I'm constantly trying to make the budget meet, and I'm trying to find any additional source of income. Doesn't mean that God might not send you that way to do that. But if your basis is not who he is, how he's proved himself, and what he's saying to me now, I am being pushed around by the storm. I might claim this is what God's saying to me, but really I'm just pursuing my preference. You remember that Terry King phrase we used last time? Conviction is what you die for. Everything else is preference. Have I just promoted my preference and I'm claiming it's faith? I don't want us to do that. Because if you call something faith that isn't faith, you stop looking for faith. You stop looking for God's voice to come into a situation that absolutely radically changes how you are in that moment. Don't call something faith that's not faith. Because his voice, the same voice that spoke and stars appeared, the same voice that spoke and the seas appeared, wants to speak into your life. But if you've decided this is faith and it's not faith, you don't have ears to hear his word that will transform what you're going through. Don't call something faith that isn't faith. So, in conclusion, faith is a superpower that enables us to live who we'll be in the future. Now, I want you guys to ask God to show you one decision you can make this week to live differently, to live in line with his view of the world. What is the trajectory of where he's taking things? Maybe I choose to be honest when everyone around me isn't being honest. I'll stick out. But I'm choosing to live according to the world that he is ushering in. And actually, he's inviting me to be part of the welcome ceremony for the world. And I can create a pocket of heaven just by being who he's called me to be and relating to him how he is wherever we are.